A legacy is a powerful thing, but there are some steps you need to take to protect yours. Do you need a will, a trust, or a medical power of attorney? We talk about all of it today with estate planning attorney Charlie Bottenberg, right now on Retiring Today. Welcome to Retiring Today. I'm here with Loren Merkle. He's a certified financial planner, a certified financial fiduciary, and a retirement income certified professional. And we've also got Charlie Bottenberg with us here today. He's an estate planning attorney at Allers & Cooney Law Firm in Des Moines. Loren, we talk a lot about retirement. We have retirement planners on our show a lot, but today we have an estate planning attorney. Why is this so important?
It's important because creating a retirement plan is not the easiest thing to do. And one of the reasons that retirement planning isn't done a lot of times with pre-retirees and retirees is, where do you start? What is actually involved in a retirement plan? So this is why we spend a lot of time talking about the essentials of a retirement plan: the income portion of that plan, the tax piece of that plan, the legacy piece, the investment piece, and the healthcare piece. Charlie is here today because he is a specialist and expert on the legal side of the legacy planning piece of the plan. When we talk about legacy planning, we talk about what do you want to have happen to whatever's left over when you do pass, and how does it pass to your loved ones and your charities in the most efficient way possible. You need somebody, you need an attorney, an estate planning attorney who specializes in that area to make sure you have all the legal documents in place and your wishes will be fulfilled exactly how you want them to go once that time does come and you do pass.
And Charlie, I heard you say this before, and I thought it was a great analogy. Estate planning is kind of like a puzzle. Explain.
It is. Well, I mean, so think about a puzzle, right? So you're at Christmas with
an eggnog?
Kids,
I got
grandkids.
it. Oh, spiked eggnog? No?
That makes puzzles
I was
better.
just envisioning Christmas.
You've got really small, simple puzzles. You have the ones that are the size, of an entire wall. And people's lives are just a bunch of little pieces that fit together in some fashion. Every puzzle's different. Every puzzle's unique. Sometimes it's fun to work on some simple ones. Sometimes it's really fun to work on some really complex ones. I enjoy working on both.
And when you hear the term estate planning, I think there's a perception out there that you think that, oh, this is only for the wealthy, but you found in your years of doing this, that's not the case.
Sure. Well, and so people don't understand is that the state of Iowa gives us all a default estate plan. There's a default estate plan contained in the Iowa Probate Code, Chapter 633 of the Iowa Code. If you're bored, I know you're not.
Fantastic. I'll go look that up.
That's my job, not your job.
Yes.
I get it. But it details very specifically exactly where your assets are going to go. And what I think a lot of people don't recognize, especially if they're on a subsequent relationship, especially if they're a blended family, or if they're in a situation where all of their kids don't need to be treated equally, whether it's a special needs situation or you've provided more support to one of your children than you have of the others and you need to equalize on the back end, the Iowa Code doesn't take any of that into play. So having an actual set of documents that outline all of your wishes, all of your desires, is truly the only way to ensure that it's really going to go the way that you want it to go.
Yeah. So most people watching have some form of an estate.
Everybody does. Yep. Whether or not you recognize that, whether or not it's necessarily what we call a plannable estate, chances are you have family heirlooms or personal property you want to go to certain people, or the family home, checking account, savings account, retirement accounts. I mean, everybody has all of these things. Or some of these things, I should say, collected, and that's part of where the puzzle piece comes in. Is every single one has different pieces that fit together in a different way, and it's my job, after talking to Loren about it, after talking to whoever, and obviously the client, right there. That's very important to then put all those pieces together in the way that makes the most sense for their family.
Yeah. So everybody has an estate, but I think a lot of people confuse what an estate plan is. Sure. A lot of times when I talk to people about their estate planning, their legacy plan, I say, what have you put in place from a legacy planning standpoint? And they say, well, I have a will. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have a will that's outdated, but they have a will nonetheless, and they think that that is their plan. A will is a legal document. It is a part of an estate plan, but it's not necessarily a plan. And there's a lot of other things that can come into play, like what's the difference between a last will and a living will? Yep. And do you need to have a last will and a living? There's a lot of different things that need to come into play that you need to have conversations with somebody who specializes in estate planning on the legal side to make sure that you have all the documents in place and your wishes will be fulfilled.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that leads me into, the will I think people are familiar with, but then you hear the term trust. Again, a term I think that gets maybe associated with maybe the ultra wealthy, or
Sure.
I couldn't possibly need a trust for whatever reason, but you find, Charlie, that sometimes a trust, a lot of people need a trust for various reasons.
I actually write more trusts than I write wills at this stage of my career. That wasn't maybe always true, but at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't understand about Iowa's legal system is in order to move property from point A to point B, from you to your kids, from you to your grandkids, from you to your neighbor's cousin, whatever, it either needs to A, have a beneficiary on it, and it transfers automatically, so things like retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, all those things can have beneficiaries on them. Or it has to go through a process called probate. And probate is the judicial process, essentially where your assets are marshaled, and then there is, via some judicial intervention, via a judge issuing orders oftentimes, your assets are then distributed to your beneficiaries. The problem is, probate, especially in our state, can get prohibitively expensive. Probate can range, I generally estimate about 3% of your assets are going to get chewed up in probate. That range is technically 2% to about 4%. Obviously 3% is right in the middle, and that's easier for most people to conceptualize. Every situation is different. But generally speaking, if you think that about 3% of your assets are going to get chewed up, and what people don't recognize is that's the gross assets, it's not the net. So if you have a $350,000 home and you have a $300,000 mortgage, it's not a $50,000 asset. It's a $350,000 asset for terms of costs. Well, you can really, really quickly, okay, I have a $350,000 home or a $300,000 home. I have, $200,000-$300,000 in retirement accounts. Well, now you're talking $500,000-$600,000. We haven't talked about bank accounts. We haven't talked about cars. We haven't talked about toys. We haven't talked about personal property. So let's say you're at $600,000, right? What's 3% of $600,000? It's $18,000. If you spend $18,000 on a trust, you have a very, very complex situation. So a lot of times, at least my process is I like to educate my clients on, hey, here are kind of your options as it pertains to estate planning. And a lot of my clients do choose to go with a trust or a set of trusts, depending on the scenario, because the cost of probate in our state can be so prohibitively expensive that they just don't want to incur those fees, or more importantly, they don't want their kids to have to incur those fees. And potentially, lessen their inheritance and lessen their legacy, right? What they're trying to get to.
And that's one of the things that I like about what you do, Charlie, as far as your process, is it is a very educational process, right? You talk to the families and say, here's an option, here's the good, here's the bad, here's what it'll do, here's another option, here's the good, here's the bad, here's what it's going to do for you. And it's very state specific. So we're here in Iowa. State of Iowa has, in my opinion, some really goofy estate planning laws.
Yes.
From a standpoint where if your probatable estate is north of 50,000, now that estate has to hire an attorney. And also that means that these other beneficiary type of assets, like your IRA, your 401k plan that has a beneficiary, can't get caught up in that in the expense of the probatable estate.
I didn't even mention that.
And a lot of people don't realize that. Is that something that you want to highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I talk about the gross assets of the estate, it's called the gross taxable estate. That includes everything that you owned the moment you passed away, and any taxable gift that you made recently. So if you just recently gifted somebody $50,000 because you're helping with whatever tuition, expenses, whatever that is, that's includable. You have a $3 million IRA and it goes to your kids via beneficiary designation. That we can skip that for court costs. There's a new law that went into effect this year that lets us skip that for court costs. But potentially on the fee side, it can be very, very expensive. And as an individual who's licensed in both Iowa and Minnesota, I can completely attest that our laws are just different. Yep. They come from a very different spot. They get to a very different stage, and it just is. And a lot of people like to fight against it, but it just is. And you need to have that information, and then make the decision based on what makes the most sense.
And just to be crystal clear, yes or no question, if I set up a trust, I can bypass paying a lot of these fees. That's why we're kind of spending so much time talking about these fees. You can,
yes. It takes some planning involved, but yes, you ask for a yes or no answer, I'll say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a trust is a document,
right.
And there are a lot of people who set up a trust and then never use it or don't use it the right way.
Don't fund it, whatever that is.
So you have to make sure the trust is just a document, then you have to understand how to use it within your overall legacy plan.
Yep.
Okay, so you might have a lot of questions. I do, as I listen to these guys talk. So that's okay if you have questions. Starting a conversation is a really important piece of legacy planning. So start a conversation with a retirement planner. You can schedule a 15-minute check call right now. go to merkleretire.com. You can get on the calendar of the retirement planners here at Merkle Retirement Planning and start a conversation about estate planning or any of the components of retirement. So we promise we talk about medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, and much more. That's coming up when Retiring Today continues.
Women face a unique set of challenges as they travel to and through retirement. From investments and caretaking to increased longevity and healthcare expenses, women face it all. How do you manage these concerns and also fulfill your retirement dreams? Join us at Jasper Winery in Des Moines for a fun and informative evening on Thursday, November 3rd at 6:30 p.m. This special workshop is designed for women, taught by women. Register today at merkleplan.com.
Biking, boating, relaxation? What's your retirement vision? Learn how to take the money you've worked so hard to save and turn it into the retirement of your dreams during our Journey to Retirement workshop. Like getting ready for a trip, getting to and through retirement takes a roadmap. This workshop is the first step to planning your 20 or 30-year vacation. Go to retirewithmerkle.com to register for our Journey to Retirement workshop this week.
Welcome back to Retiring Today. I'm here with Loren Merkle and Charlie Bottenberg. Charlie is an estate planning attorney, and we're really glad to have him on today because he's got a lot of good stuff to say. Now, just to make it crystal clear for people, because I think they're still doing that will versus trust thing at home. Maybe, Charlie, some people are. When are some of the real key points of when to consider a trust?
Sure. So, I mean, anytime your assets are hitting a point where you're doing that mental, cost benefit analysis where you think the 3% is going to justify, not having to pay those probate fees. Generally speaking, I start talking to my clients in the $500,000 plus range. I don't have a lot of clients that are under $750,000 to $1 million who have a trust. I have some who do. There's other reasons to have trusts. I mean, there's protection. There's more control over what happens to your assets after you pass away. Do you need to dole out money slowly to a beneficiary because they can't handle the funds? Do you have special needs beneficiaries? So there's lots of other reasons why somebody might want that. But I think most of my clients are interested in avoiding probate. And given that at least in Iowa, our houses, we can't do what's called a transfer on death deed. Again, I mentioned Minnesota. You can in Minnesota. Sorry, Iowa, we can't. So you need some other vehicle in order to avoid probate. So for people who own real estate, their gross assets are at a stage where they feel like they would really like to not pay that 3% fee. That's typically where most of my trust clients come from.
Yeah, so in Iowa, with home values rising, you said about $500,000 level. You gave in the first segment $600,000, 3% fee, that's $18,000 cost to you. So if you have a house and it's valued at $400,000, but then you have some other assets that would put you over that $500,000 barrier, that would be a benchmark that you would say, hey, let's consider this vehicle. Because then what that means is then potentially your entire estate could avoid that probate process. Again, in the state of Iowa, if your probatable estate is south of $50,000, then you don't have all the nuance of going through the probate process with all the fees that could be tied to it.
Right.
Okay, ready to go? Medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney. Yes, I know you could talk about this all day, but Charlie, let's start with the financial power of attorney. Okay. Does that get set up during this legacy planning process as well?
Absolutely should. And I think a lot of times people get more mileage out of their financial power of attorney and their medical power of attorney than they do out of their estate plan. Especially if your beneficiary structure is simple. You have 2 kids and they're getting it 50-50. Okay, avoiding probate, key, because we're not losing all those assets, but your beneficiary section of your estate planning document is going to be pretty boring, right? And that's okay. Small puzzle, right? But people really need to be aware that our guardianship and our conservatorship laws changed in 2020 to the point where it can be very prohibitively expensive to get a guardian or a conservator appointed. Why did I just bring that up? Well, in medical power of attorney, on its face, at its most base level, let somebody step into your shoes and make did I say financial or medical?
You said medical first.
Okay.
Yeah, medical. Yeah.
We'll go medical.
Stay
Sorry,
there.
I was like, wait a minute, we're talking about financial.
Similar. Yeah.
In medical power of attorney, at its base level, let someone step in and make medical decisions for you that you could make were you able to make those on your own. So if you're somebody who has a history of dementia in their family, has a history of other, long-term care. If you have a medical power of attorney, it allows your decision maker, spouse, kids, neighbor's cousin, I think that's what I said last time, to step in and make those decisions without having to get court involved, because frankly, anytime you get court involved, it gets expensive. Same thing on a financial power of attorney. So a financial power of attorney lets somebody step in, make decisions for you, pay your bills, work with your financial advisor, make sure all of those things are working the way they're supposed to, so that even if you can't, they still can without needing to go to court and getting that conservatorship. The other document that normally comes along with a medical power of attorney is called a living will. That's different than a last will that Loren was talking about earlier. The living will basically states, you can set up parameters that give the power of attorney the ability to let you go peacefully. If you're on a ventilator, if you're on a feeding tube, you don't have brain activity, you have a terminal condition, you're not going to get better, you don't want to be in a hospital bed long term. You also get to pick some other things on there relating to HIPAA and releasing of medical records, and whether or not they can harvest your organs within a certain amount of time. You get some real morbid. People are always shocked when I hit that section of the document. They're like, well, welcome to Monday, right? We're going to have a fun conversation. But they are very, very powerful tools, because yes, everyone will pass away, and thus everyone should have a will. But a lot of times, illness or an accident or something like that is very, very catastrophic in people's lives.
Charlie, one of the questions that I get when we're talking with our families about power of attorneys or even an executor in a will is they have 4 kids.
Sure.
And they don't want to just identify one kid to do this because, well, that's going to cause some division amongst the other siblings. What's your take on that? What do you talk people through when they come to you and say, I have 4 kids, I don't want these 3 to feel bad, but I really feel like Junior might be the best one to handle this? How do you work them through that?
So at the end of the day, my advice is always, if you are in a terrible situation and you had to call one of your kids and you cannot call all 4, and it was financial or it was medical, which one are you going to call? You can't call all 4. I'm not even going to let you. And technically we could, but we're not going to do that. And whoever you answer, that should be your power of attorney. There's ways to set it up so that it's a daisy chain. So if this person's not available, then it's this person. If this person's not available, it's not this person. Occasionally I have had some where they have 4 kids and we put all 4 kids down as a power of attorney. But what you need to understand is there's a difference between and or. And means everyone has to be there. This person and this person have to interact. Well, if one's not there, one's traveling in Europe and you have a stroke, then what? Or you could put 2 people down, or you could put 4 people down. That sounds horrible, as an or, and they could all interact. But then the question is, who's doing what, and what are the checks and balances? Because you have 4 different people interacting with your finances. Do they all understand your plan? Well, if they do, chances are they'd be okay with one person being the point person and everyone else just funneling in information. And then the last thing I'll say on that is, generally speaking, if you have 4 kids, one of them is better at finances, or one of them is better at medicine than the other 3, or perhaps one of them doesn't get along with their siblings as much. And the number of times that I have people come in and say, hey, I'm financial power of attorney, or my brother is financial power of attorney and he has put my mom or my sibling or whatever in a bad living situation, what can I do? My answer is spend thousands of dollars to go get guardianship and conservatorship. That's not a document that you want. This is going to sound terrible. It's not a document you want to save feelings on. It's a document you want to make the right choice. And I think most kids will understand, hey, somebody has to be in charge. Please still talk to your siblings about it anyway.
Yeah, if you have 4 people in charge, odds are things aren't going to get done.
We've all been in a group project.
Yeah, exactly. So have one in charge, and you can assign one to the medical power of attorney, one to the financial power of attorney, one as an executor. But somebody needs to take the lead on it, because the odds of 4 people agreeing on everything to make those important decisions in crunch time is probably slim to none.
Or 2 kids think the other one's doing it, and then neither one does it. The whole group project thing, right? Like you end up with the scenario where somebody's not interacting, or 2 people are doing all the work anyway. Well, you might as well give them the power to do so.
Right.
It's time for our Ask the Advisor question. It's up on your screen right now. Here it is. What kind of taxes will be owed and when on inheritance money? If you have a question that you'd like to see us answer on the show, there's information on your screen right now. Please submit a question. We'd love to answer it here. Charlie will answer that question and much more when Retiring Today continues.
The Merkle Retirement Planning Team provides personable and professional expertise unrivaled in this area. They include us in every step of the planning process. The peace of mind provided to us by the Merkle team allows us to fully enjoy this special time of our lives. Instead of feeling snakebit, we feel confident that with the Merkle Retirement Planning team at our sides, we can navigate any challenge that comes our way.
Merkle Retirement Planning. Your retirement starts here.
Women face a unique set of challenges as they travel to and through retirement. From investments and caretaking to increased longevity and healthcare expenses, women face it all. How do you manage these concerns and also fulfill your retirement dreams? Join us at Jasper Winery in Des Moines for a fun and informative evening on Thursday, November 3rd at 6:30 p.m. This special workshop is designed for women, taught by women. Register today at merkleplan.com.
Welcome back to Retiring Today. Here's another look at our Ask the Advisor question. What kinds of taxes will be owed and when on inheritance money? I am sitting next to two people who know the answer to that question. Charlie Bottenberg, what's the answer?
So first off, I neglected to say that all of this is for informational purposes and none of this is attorney advice at the beginning of the show.
Good disclaimer.
Because you just got real specific. Obviously, it's not about individual situations. So there's three types of tax that people are going to run into. At least in our state, you've got inheritance tax, you have estate tax, and you have income tax. Iowa is what's called an inheritance tax state. What that means is when somebody passes away, tax is owed not based on how much you leave. I mean, obviously it's a percentage, so it is there, but more who you leave it to. So kids, grandkids, parents, grandparents, stepkids, step-parents are all tax-free. Ironically enough, I don't think step-grandkids are, which is weird, but I didn't write the law. Are all tax-free from an inheritance standpoint. Additionally, anything that is a qualified assets or retirement account, IRA, 401k, 403b, and life insurance with a direct beneficiary are also inheritance tax-free. Federally, we have what's called an estate tax. Currently, that threshold is $12,060,000. So if you die with less than $12,060,000, there is no estate tax owed. Or if you're a couple and your estate plan is set up correctly, you actually get to tack on theirs. Or there's a kind of a juxtaposition there, but it could be $24 million, $120,000.
Right. Doesn't impact most
Doesn't
people,
impact some of my clients, but not most of my clients. And then finally, there's income tax. And generally speaking, something that you will pay income tax on when you pull the money out of gets you out of inheritance tax. But for instance, if I leave all of my assets to my kids, one, I don't have $24 million, so there's no estate tax owed. Two, they're all my kids, so there's no inheritance tax owed. However, as they pulled money out of my 401k or my IRA or my wife's 403b, they would owe income tax on that. So that's a super attorney answer to what was probably meant to be a super easy question, but it's a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah, so all of that is like a lot of times when we're talking about these other pieces of the retirement plan, it's just a lot of if-then. And that goes into the customization of your overall retirement plan, your legacy plan, which is why it's really important to have a team of professionals working on your behalf to accomplish all of these different components that are involved within the retirement plan. Because not everybody can do everything really well. You need a team of experts to make sure that the legacy piece is handled, to make sure the tax piece is handled. So a retirement planner is a good professional to have on your team, an estate planning attorney, a CPA, and then they can all work together on your behalf, because there's no way you're going to sit here and watch a 30-minute show and then know everything that you're going to be able to put in place for all of the components of the plan. But it's a good place to start. And then what you need to do is reach out, first of all, formulate your idea of what you want to take place. When you do pass, if you're married, talk to your spouse and make sure that you can come to some kind of a basic foundation of here's what you want to have happen, and then consult the professional to make sure that you can put all these pieces together.
Yeah, and Charlie and Loren, you guys both know a lot about what you do because you're experts in it, but you make it simple for the people. You know, you take in their information and try to simplify it. Charlie, I want to get real quickly to kind of the end of things. So I set up these documents. I've got my trust, I've got my will, then someone dies, someone passes. What do you do then for clients?
Sure. So my job is to shepherd them through the process, right? Chances are they haven't been through this process before. Chances are they don't want to go through this process, but it's necessary. So it's my job to use my expertise and my knowledge, having done this dozens of times, hundreds of times, to help people make all the choices, do all the things that they need to do, answer all the questions, explain to them what to expect, explain the deadlines, because obviously these are all code things, there's deadlines, and then help manage that process with them, check in, make sure they're moving along, and if they're not, help get them back on track.
Yeah, and usually this is a very emotional time frame, and so you don't want to be thinking about all the things that you may not know or all the legalities of it, which is why it's nice to make this process as simple as possible. You do the heavy lifting, and then make sure everything gets done the way it needs to get done.
Yep.
And Loren, a lot of what Charlie does is similar to what the retirement planners here do, because you're taking something that's got a lot of decisions, a lot of complexities, a lot of facets, and you're trying to make it simple for people once you educate them on the choices they have. And that's kind of what this whole journey to retirement is.
Making it simple is absolutely imperative, because that's how things get done. If things are really difficult and complex, to the level that these things really are difficult and complex, because they're not easy, but if we make it that way, then things don't get done. So it has to be simple. We have to walk you through the process step by step to make sure everything gets done the way you want. We talk about this in our Journey to Retirement workshop. And what we do is we use a hypothetical couple, John and Sue, and they're pre-retirees. They want to retire within 3 years. Now, here's all the things that they're considering about their retirement. They have some very specific goals outlined. Your goals might be different than John and Sue. That's okay. But through this workshop, as we work through the strategies they're implementing, from how do they deliver income when they retire? How do they mitigate the impact of taxation, really decrease their overall retirement tax bill? How do they put a will or a trust or the power of attorneys in process into their plan to make sure that they have their legacy dreams fulfilled? Then the healthcare piece as well as the investment piece. You know, right now we're in a very volatile market. A lot of people are really concerned about what their 401ks and IRAs are doing. So we talk about how to develop a recession-resistant portfolio so when the market blows up, the accounts don't blow up and you can still accomplish everything that you're trying to do from an investment standpoint as well. So we walk you through that through the Journey to Retirement workshop. It doesn't cost anything, it's completely complimentary, and it's easy to gain access to.
Yeah, and it's a really educational workshop. So there's some information on your screen right now. You can sign up for a Journey to Retirement workshop, and then you'll get some information from us, a workbook that you can kind of go along with the retirement planners as they talk about all of this. And for some people, having a workbook in front of you and watching stuff on a screen, it's like being back in school, Loren, but it's like fun.
But it's a fun school.
It's because it's give me to retirement.
Yeah, because what this does is it's your roadmap to the rest of your life. It's the roadmap to the rest of your life you've been dreaming about for the last 40 years, and now you're right there on the doorsteps. And here's going to be kind of your Sherpa, if you will, to get you to that next phase of your life.
And we'll continue talking about that roadmap to retirement on this show. It's Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
Women face a unique set of challenges as they travel to and through retirement. From investments and caretaking to increased longevity and healthcare expenses, women face it all. How do you manage these concerns and also fulfill your retirement dreams? Join us at Jasper Winery in Des Moines for a fun and informative evening on Thursday, November 3rd at 6:30 p.m. This special workshop is designed for women, taught by women. Register today at merkleplan.com.